I've been at Scope3 a year. I think it's a year tomorrow, actually. And a lot has changed in that year. I think we started in early days working with our agency partners. We still do. And it feels like brands more and more are leaning in. They're feeling the pressure, both legislatively, right, kind of tops down from a legislative perspective, started in the EU, certainly starting to happen in the US, and then bottoms up pressure from a consumer perspective. Consumers, next gen consumers are expecting that brands have purpose and pay attention to things like climate change. And so what we've seen is brands and agencies really start to work together. I think one of the things that's really starting to form is the demand for more granular, more dynamic data, right? As brands have to start reporting those numbers to government bodies, it's important that they can trust the data set. And in order to trust the data set, right, and Scope3 is very focused on this, we need to have contributed data, right, from all different parts of the ecosystem, right? You can't just rely on a static data set or something that isn't accounting for the dynamic nature of grid mix and the dynamic nature of the way that advertising works. And so we've been really focused on that with our brand and agency partners, and what you can expect to see from Scope3 is a continued push to measure across all the digital channels, right? We just started measuring digital out-of-home as our most recent channel. That's an ask that we're getting from brands, is measure everything, have granular dynamic data, push the industry to collaborate and to bring data sets together to help everybody feel more confident in the data set and what we're actually measuring.
Can you explain the business of Scope3 and how it works and your partnerships?
Yeah. So Scope3 works across kind of the entire ecosystem, from publishers to SSPs, DSPs, ad tech partners, and then kind of the buy side of the ecosystem, so agencies, consultancies, and brands. And we help all of those different facets of the business measure their carbon emissions at an impression level, which is really important, and identify areas for reduction, right? It's an imperative, not just a strategic imperative for everybody, but like a human imperative that we attack the climate crisis together, right? And so our goal as a company is to be the solution and the partner to help brands, agencies, and partners across the ecosystem reduce their carbon emissions.
So in terms of client engagement, how does that look? Do you charge depending on the size of the enterprise or by the data that you make available? Tell us a little bit about, hang a second. Tell us a little bit about how the business works of Scope3.
Yeah, so from a business perspective, right, you can think of Scope3 as a data and a technology company. We've got a large data set, right, that gets used in a few different ways across planning, measurement, and optimization, and I can kind of touch on those. And then we have a platform, a piece of technology, right? And so when we're working with a partner like an SSP, they will license the data to be able to curate inventory that is greener for the buy side, for agencies and brands to buy. The data also gets used for measurement, and that can either be on a usage basis, right, to measure at an impression level. That's a CPM that is charged. And in the case of technology, right, where a partner is buying our platform, it's a technology fee. The data is embedded in it, and it's measuring, and the data set kind of sits within it, and it's measuring on behalf of that partner.
And finally, how is demand for sustainability being driven, and is it, what are those forces that are making this happen, and where might this be going?
Yeah, I think there's a couple of things. I think it started very much as a piece of innovation, an area in which agency partners added value to their brands, and they're continuing to do so, and it's awesome to see. I think the seismic change that seems to have happened in the last year is that brands are really starting to lean in, and there's kind of two pressure points that are causing that. Number one is legislative pressure, right? They have to start reporting on this. They're doing it already in areas of the EU. California just passed a law that in 2025 mandates that all brands over $1 billion measure and report their Scope 3 emissions, right? So that's a big tops-down pressure. And then the consumer pressure, right? The bottoms-up pressure. Those are the two things I think that are really causing brand marketers to pay attention and start to create learning agendas around sustainability, understanding how to measure, understanding how to reduce, what partners they work with, and assessing the ecosystem in a way that makes them both more carbon efficient, but also more effective.